I find it interesting that only one of our constitutionally guaranteed rights seems to stop at state lines. That's the right to keep and bear arms. Regardless of what your opinion is on that, we're still bound by state laws and federal laws. And that means that, depends on what state you go to, you may or may not be okay, even with or without a concealed carry license. Now, some states have constitutional carry where you don't need a concealed carry license. Some states make you jump through all sorts of hoops to maybe get a license to carry a concealed weapon. And again, cross state lines, some permits are good, some permits aren't. And it's really not a whole lot different for off-duty police officers or even retired police officers. However, back in, I think it was around 2004, 2005, somewhere around there, they passed the Law Enforcement Officers Safety Act, and that provided for, with certain exceptions, provided for off-duty officers and even retired officers to be able to carry concealed in all 50 states, the District of Columbia, and even the United States territories. And again, there are exceptions to that. And one of them says you have to qualify either on your department qualification, the department from which you're retired. I'm going to talk about this from the standpoint of being a retired police officer here in Michigan. So you have to qualify with your department, and every year you get a new ID card that says that you've met the requirements of that act and qualified with the department. If you can't qualify with your department, by the way, I retired from the Washtenaw County Sheriff's Department, and believe it or not, they don't honor LEOSA. Well, they don't issue LEOSA cards. So even though I retired from them, I can't qualify with them, I can't get the ID card. So there is another way in Michigan to do that. This through the Michigan Commission on Law Enforcement Standards, or MCOLES for short, and I can annually qualify with them. Now I have to still get fingerprints, go through the application process, drive 75 miles to the one testing center to be able to take an 8-hour class every single year, and to do a qualification course. Once I do that, then the state will eventually give me an ID card that says I qualify under the Law Enforcement Officer Safety Act, or LEOSA. So Michigan's interesting in that there are 3 qualification courses, different types of qualification courses approved by MCOLES. Back in the early 90s, a panel of subject matter experts, spearheaded by myself and Danny Bartley from Troy PD, revised the standards that have been in effect since 1973. And those became the Academy standards once we implemented those back in the early to mid-1990s. They haven't really changed a lot since then, although they have changed in a couple of ways that may or may not be okay. But for the qualification under LEOSA, you have to meet the Active Duty Firearms Standards Course of Fire. Now, the most recent one I have, I'll just read it to you real quick and I'll post it up here, and then we'll go ahead and shoot it. At 2 yards, you have to face the TCQ-95 target. Now, I don't have any TCQ-95 targets. All I have is the old TC-71 targets. We'll talk about that when we get into it. Eventually, I'll try to get some TCQ-95s. But from 2 yards, 2 whole yards, facing one TCQ-95 target, you have to draw from the holster, fire 2 shots in 3 seconds. You have to repeat that a total of 3 times, firing 6 rounds. Then you go back to 3 yards. Wow, 3 yards. And now you're facing 2 targets that are spaced about 3 feet apart. And you have 4 seconds for each exposure. Now I'm turning targets, so we'll do it with a timer. Exposure 1, from the holster, draw and fire 1 round at each target. Then you keep the firearm out in ready position. Exposure 2, you fire 1 round on each target. Again, 4 seconds to do that. And then finally, exposure 3, with a secondary hand only, you fire 1 round at each target in a total in 4 seconds for each one. So then you go back to stagger targets at 4 and 7 yards. And shooter chooses different cover position on each exposure. That's why I have cover set up behind me there. And exposure number 1, from the holster, fire 1 round at each target in 4 seconds. Exposure number 2, from the ready position, fire 2 rounds at each target. Remember, they're staggered 4 and 7 yards in a total of in 6 seconds. And then exposure number 3, from the ready position, fire 2 rounds at each target again in 6 seconds, total of 10 rounds. And here's the tough part, and actually it's the part that some people don't get. At 10 yards, and again, we'll come all the way back here to 10 yards. At 10 yards, slow-sighted fire emphasizing precision and bullet placement, also known as marksmanship. You have to fire 3, get this, 3 rounds in a total of 60 seconds. All of this has to be within the combat scoring area. And again, it's a little bit different between the TCQ-95 and the TC-71 that I have here. I'm going to go with there's 3 rings on the TC-71. I'm going to go with the inner 2 rings. The combat scoring area is much larger on the TCQ-95. I'll get a couple of those. Actually, I'll roll a picture in here to show you what those are. So that's the course of fire. I don't have turning targets. We're going to do it with a timer here. but we are going to try it and just see what happens here at 2, 3, 4, 7, and 10 yards. 25 shots total. And again, this is the active duty law enforcement standard for the state of Michigan. Now, each department in Michigan has their own qualification. Hopefully, they're much more demanding than that, but this is what MCOLES says you do. So, we're going to reset the camera, and we're going to give it a try. All right, from 2 yards. I'm going to just use the right-hand target, and the drill here is to draw and fire 2 shots, draw from the holster, fire 2 shots in 3 seconds. So let's charge the Smith & Wesson CSX. Safety on, gun back in the holster. Just using the right-hand target, and again, we are right at 6 feet. I want to put a delay in here though, don't I? Try it again. Stand by. Time on that was 2.60. .39. Little hesitation there. Back to 2.67. So we're under the 3 second required for that. All right, we need to move it back now. Oh, wow, going back to 3 yards. All right, so this one is 4 seconds per exposure. First one from the holster. 1 shot on each target. The targets are spaced 3 feet apart as they're supposed to be, and I am right here at 9 feet. My toes are at 9 feet, actually. 4 seconds for this, going left and right. .54, kind of slow. Oh, the next one is from the ready position. Same thing. Safety back on the CSX. Same 4 seconds. Ready position. .10. Now this one is secondary hand only. Secondary hand only. Again, 1 shot on each target. Hold that last shot just a little bit. But our time was 1.89 actually. All right, so this stage has staggered targets and a barricade from which to shoot. One target's at 4 yards, one's at 7 yards. The shooter chooses different cover position for each exposure. Exposure 1 from the holster, 1 round at each target, time limit 4 seconds. Exposure 2 from the ready position, 2 rounds at each target, 6 seconds. Exposure 3 from the ready position, 2 rounds at each target, 6 seconds. Again, different exposure each time. Can be kneeling, left or right, could be standing, left or right, sitting prone, whatever I wish to do. Okay, make sure the Smith & Wesson CSX is charged and ready to go. Safety on. So we're going to start from standing right side barricade. We have 4 seconds. Draw, fire 1 shot on each target. That was 3.65. From the ready position, different position, I'm going to go kneeling. We have 6 seconds to do 2 shots on each target. Okay, it looks like a little left down there. 4.51 seconds. Ready position, I'm going to go left side of the barricade. 6 seconds, 2 shots on each target. 4.91 seconds. Let's go forward and take a look, take a couple of snaps here. All right, there are 5 shots on each target. That's exactly what I needed. They would all be within the combat scoring area of a TCQ 95. All right, next one is the tough one. Okay, I'm kind of scattered there on the 7-yard target. Now I got to come back to 10 and shoot 3 shots in a total of 60 seconds, all in the combat scoring area. Let's see if I can get kind of precise at it. Got to reset the camera on this one. We'll keep the targets, everything else where they are. All right, I am 10 yards from the right target, and we've got to put 3 shots in the combat scoring area within 60 seconds. Man, 60 seconds, I don't know. Can I do that? And I have 3 shots left. 1 in the chamber and 2 in the magazine. Do I even need to time this one? Sure. Doesn't say from the holster now, does it? Slow, unsighted fire. So, take my time. Okay, I think they're all in the combat scoring area. I will go forward and take a quick picture just to make sure they're where they're supposed to be. All right, all the shots are where they're supposed to be. And again, this is the active duty standard, but it's what's required for the LEOSA qualification through the state of Michigan for those whose departments don't sign their LEOSA card. Is it all that difficult? Again, I'm doing this with a little iron-sighted, effectively a concealed carry gun, and this is the active duty police standard. Gotta wonder, a whole lot simpler than what the academy level standard is. So we'll do a follow-up on this with the police academy standard, which is a lot closer to the one that Danny and I wrote back, oh my gosh, almost 30 years ago now. And also the one for the recognition of prior training and experience, which is, again, for those who let their certification expire and want to get recertified without going through the academy, or for those who are coming in from a law enforcement agency out of state, got hired by one in state. Before they can be an active police officer, they have to get that recognition of prior experience and training. And we'll do those 2 separate qualification courses. I'll try to get the TCQ 95 targets by then. Meanwhile, that's the Michigan course for active duty standards or for LEOSA. Thanks for stopping in.